Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Niall.
And I'm Kyle, and I've got a huge announcement. A big announcement.
Really?
Yes, huge announcement. If you could have seen me before we started recording, before I hopped on Zoom here with you, you could have heard me tearing ass around, like, from across the other side of the house, just running to the microphone.
You have, like, beans or something?
No. That you're thinking of farting. I meant tearing asses and, like, moving very quickly.
Oh, okay.
You're thinking of farting, which
yeah,
I
thought you were just, like, crop dusting your entire house. Like,
No. I'm, like, fucking rip-roaring, tearing my ass across the house. I was so excited to share this announcement. Huge announcement. I got athlete's foot.
Really?
Yes, I did. I have no idea where it came from, which is honestly worse than I think knowing. But wow. I can't remember. I think the last time I had athlete's foot was in high school when I did swimming. And I was, walking around locker rooms barefoot and shit. And I gotta say, negative review of athlete's foot.
Oh yeah, not a fan?
No, it sucks. It really sucks. But it sucks especially because I am a big time foot hater.
Yeah, you really do not like to be touched by and or be around feet.
I prefer to keep them on the ground. And so like obviously I can deal with my own feet, right? But it's like if you stare into the mirror a little too long, you start to get uneasy staring at your own face for too long. You know what I mean? Like, at least maybe is that a thing? Do you ever feel that way? I feel that way.
Not really.
Okay, well,
I'm pretty.
I'm the normal one.
Feet.
You're the weird one. I think I'm gonna plant my flag.
All right.
I don't want. I just realized that I was saying something that could make people realize that I'm fucking weird, and I kind of wanted to reverse it on you, like reverse card type deal.
While we're figuring this out, there's something that may or may not be time sensitive depending on your answer to this question.
Oh shit!
Is there something in the bottom right corner of the screen on your end right now that is smoking?
Oh,
do you have like a humidifier on or something?
Yeah. I appreciate the concern. I guess now is the other big announcement. I did move out to California.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, maybe that's not such a good joke. I have family out there who they haven't had to evacuate, but they're
that's good.
Actually, it's the craziest shit in the world. They are a mile south of the fires, and they're untouched.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. That shit is fucked up, and my knee-jerk response was to crack a joke about it, and I apologize. But it's just I've seen all the news about it.
Horrifying fires.
Yeah, pretty horrifying. And every time, and like, God, I'm sorry. This is to go from the foot thing to the fire thing here. It's like
holding your feet to the fire.
Yeah, exactly. I see that stuff. I see like the wildfires and shit, and I'm just like, this is the rest of our time on Earth, huh? This is just how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was thinking if somebody that I was dating was like, I want you to do foot stuff with me, I'd have a real crisis moment.
Yeah,
Um,
you'd be punching that source wall to try to change the fetish of your
I,
significant other.
I think I'd have to really love that person to even touch their feet. Um,
Have you ever been in a relationship where you gave like a foot massage before? Is that off the
no,
table for you?
it's not. It's not off the table, but like I think this is. It's sort of like how when you spend enough time in a relationship when the right time is to say I love you is, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
For me it would be like, okay, we've been together long enough, I know you well enough, I will willingly touch your feet.
But does that point become come before or after marriage? When in your like, is that
I think
a base beyond marriage, or is that
I think that's a
earlier?
step beyond marriage for me. I think we're going to have to we're in it together forever if
Yeah.
I'm touching your fucking dirty ass toes. Uh so uh
All right.
anyways, that was a great start to the episode. I did want to say we have an email. If you're up for that,
Yeah. Hit me up.
I figured
I'm hungry.
I'm also hungry, and this is a good email. So we got an email from Jacob, and Jacob says, "Hello, IGW peeps. Loved the recent episode with Mary Meyer and the spooks. It's always flabbergasted me how the CIA or FBI/government have that deep, dark side to them. You're supposed to govern, not manipulate the truth. There's probably so much the public truly doesn't know about the seedy goings-on of our country domestically and internationally." Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny because I've been getting invested in this stuff, and talking about Mary Meyer, MK Ultra, all the stuff that
Mhm.
we've talked about over the last couple months. It's like I am fascinated with the fact that there's this sort of dark, I'll say it, like there's basically, at least during this era, a deep state sort of political world, which deep state's another one of those terms that really is complicated due to the fact that it's now associated with people like Alex Jones. But as I understand it, used to have more of a leftist political origin point. Which it was literally just to refer to the kind of shit that we've talked about on those shows where they're, these people who have power are doing secret things to manipulate, various political things,
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. All that being said, it is also another one of those things where I am as I read and learn more, because that's kind of the process I've been going through here, is we've done a ton of UFO stuff. So there are tropes, there are things that we recognize, there's a history that we have the context of a lot of the time at this point. And I'm kind of still learning a lot of that stuff when it comes to this deep politics stuff that I've been looking into.
Mhm.
And the thing that I'm realizing as I go along is I am now also realizing how it would be so easy for a person to slip into a fringe conspiracy, I wasn't even gonna say QAnon, but kind of, yeah. I'm starting to see how these stories they sometimes feel like they're made to make people feel insane.
Yeah.
And it's I think that's the scariest thing for me. It's I think that this abuse of political power and the ability to manipulate, that's not exactly surprising, but the fact that there's sort of this undercurrent of driving people who look into it a little crazy, that's almost more sinister to me.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, that's an aside. Thank you for the kind words. They go on in the email to say, before I get too much into the weeds, don't worry about it. Jacob already did it for you. When I was a t-shirt press operator a few years ago, there was a shirt design we'd print of JFK. To this day, hearing his name always makes me think of it. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Phantasm, which
Yes.
Niall, I think we watched that together, didn't we?
Yeah, we watched that together.
Yeah. In the film, the antagonist uses a flying metal sphere as a weapon that sticks to people's foreheads and drills into their brains. It's very metal, literally, because it's made of metal. Well, you can imagine where the shirt goes with these two concepts of JFK and Phantasm. I've attached a picture of the shirt. That's really it. Keep on keeping on. You guys are churning out gold. Love the show. And they have a big question. So, if you want, we can do this big question. I don't know if it's going to be related, but it is related to the... I could potentially save it for another one of my like parapolitical episodes. So
there's a chance that it could work here. We'll feel that out as I unveil what we're talking about today, because there is a little bit of a disinformation angle to this thing that I'm going to be talking about today.
All right, cool.
But it'll come a bit later.
Well, anyways, Jacob ends the email by saying, "Thank you guys for being awesome." And yes, I don't know if you saw the photo. This shirt's I would wear this shirt 100%. It's exactly what you think it is, by the way.
Okay. So I mean, here's the thing. I'll take this opportunity just to talk about Phantasm real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
Really like that movie.
Yeah, me too.
I have an intention to go back and watch more of them. I kind of every year around Halloween I get really into franchise horror. And will like pick a franchise and a lot of times like watch a bunch of them or whatever. And Phantasm is definitely due to be one of those, because I've heard really good things about a couple of the later parts of the franchise.
Yeah.
And the first one, despite its like thrown togetherness, I found incredibly charming and interesting. So Phantasm rules, and that shirt sounds like it would be pretty cool.
I think we came away with the same feeling. I remember because that movie's weird, and there's like multiple cuts of it too, where like I'm sure there's some sort of interesting backstory to how all that happened. But it's one of those movies that's just like it like the version that we watched felt a little cobbled together, but like you said, it's very charming, and I find the horror aspects of it very funny. The thing that I still, to this day, find extremely bizarre about whatever version that we watched is that there are like moments up at the front, if I remember correctly, where they're literally just doing stuff from Dune. Like it's super weird.
There's like the box. There's like
the box to but they say like just there's like terminology from Dune as well. But yeah, it's the oh my god, I'm forgetting the words, but like the witches. Jabbar. Yeah, it's the Gom Jabbar. He has to put his hand in it, and she says that there's pain in the box. I can't remember if that's in but it's the exact same shit from Dune, and I want to know the story behind that. I'm sure I could just look it up, but like I'm pretty sure super weird.
Because the Phantasm is one of those where the like making of has like a whole thing, because it was a guy that threw together this project. It was like a really long script or something, and it ended up getting, so there's like stuff they filmed for the first movie that was then used for the second movie. Like it's one of those where it has like so much on the cutting room floor and so much extra stuff that was not filmed, and so much like the script was changing all the time and yada yada yada. So I'm sure if you went out there and looked, you could hear, I think his name's Don Cascarelli, I think is the director of that movie. Okay. You could probably find information about his influences, and I'm curious if you would cop to the Dune thing.
Yeah. Well, anyways, what have you got for me this week, Niall?
So I ended up finding a UFO case that I found interesting in Spain. And the part of what drew me to this is that it was referencing, it got referenced another episode that we've already done. It has some similarities to the Voronezh UFO encounter in Russia.
Yeah.
But also this is one of the first times I've seen it in not America. There is the like Spanish version of like kind of Project Blue Book or something called the CEIFO. Investigated this case, and there's rumors by certain people that it was a misinformation thing in a lot of the way that Blue Book used to do stuff in America. So I thought that I haven't found a lot of that kind of thing outside of America yet, and was very curious to see it represented in another country.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard of the CIFO, I do believe. And remind me, Voronezh was that an abduction case or like a sighting? I can't remember. It was a sighting.
It's
been a while.
So it was in September 27th, 1989, which this sighting that I'm going to talk about today took place in Spain on September 29th, 1989. So this is like right there.
Okay.
But it was, boys playing in a football in a city park, and they saw this thing in the sky.
Right.
There was this deep red ball that was kind of up above, and then a three-eyed alien wearing like weird outfits and stuff came down, and it had a ray gun and stuff. Like it's all of those, like, it's one of the weirder UFOs, like alien sightings.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting. So the fact that this was like, a lot of times gets brought up as a kind of companion piece to the Voronezh encounter, was a good chunk of my interest in talking about this one, honestly.
Cool. I love that. I think that Voronezh also gets compared to another case that we did not, like, pretty recently. But maybe we'll be able to tease that out. But I think it was the guy. I think it may have been the Cisco Grove encounter. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
Where the guy hides up in the tree. Because
those were like metallic beings too.
Yes, right? It's about I guess they're compared insofar as they have weird specific alien types that don't reappear in other stories, but like their closest comparison, I think, was Voronezh was one of the ones that got. There's also like there's like lumberjacks in Europe that saw something similar, like a metallic man thing. So
I love metal men aliens. I think they're so fucking cool.
It's great.
So yeah, these aren't quite metal men, but there are some stylistic similarities between the beings in these two cases. So we'll travel back to Spain in September of 1989. There's a beach called Los Batales near the town of Conil in Spain, hence why it's called the Conil case, or the Conil UFO encounter, or whatever you want to call it. But that's what you'll find it referred to as. And that literally, like, it a lot of times when you see this, it'll talk about how there was a magazine. I think it was like the Spanish version of Time magazine had an edition around this time that literally said like they're here with big like aliens on it because of the Voronezh encounter, and then immediately like stuff started happening in Spain too, and it's I don't know, I find that part interesting. So this is one of those cases where there's kind of a preamble to it. It was the actual encounter happens to like a group of five friends between the ages of 14 and 23. I think the 14 is like a younger brother or something. It's kind of a group of young adults, I guess, are the people that see this encounter. And they are out on a beach at night hanging out at like between like 10 and 11, because leading up to this, what kind of started the interest is people started seeing lights in the sky around this place in Spain, specifically above this beach. So there's a preamble here of various other sightings, which I have some accounts of later, where things were seen leading up to this, which led them to be on the beach specifically looking for lights in the sky and stuff when this encounter happened. So like they were specifically interested to go out there to see an alien encounter, and they did.
Okay, that's sort of colors the situation a little bit, but
yeah, this really feels like it comes out of this kind of this interest born out of these other encounters being in the news, and so like
sure,
there's a bit of that element to this whole story, which happens pretty frequently.
It's occurring to me that like I feel like most of our cases that we've covered that aren't like contactees and abductees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are people who are like, I never anticipated I would see a UFO type people, like just, first timers, I guess is the word usually. It's interesting to me that there would be a case that would endure where
it's like it almost sounds like maybe this is me jumping the gun a little bit, but it almost sounds like these are people who were in the middle of like a burgeoning UFO flap, and they were like, we're gonna get in on this.
Yeah, it has that vibe because there are these sightings leading up to this that people see. It's before this, it's all lights in the sky. Like lights in the sky is what is happening that leads to this interest, and the kids have taken to, or the young adults, whatever you want to call them, the group has taken to hanging out on this beach at night trying to look for the lights. And then so that they've done this multiple nights in a row, seeing lights like every time. And then so yeah, it really feels like they are one of the rare cases where people are aware of like a burgeoning UFO flap, and are specifically looking for it.
The initial sighting is usually what endures as a story. The sighting that starts the flap. So I mean, that's not like, obviously that's not 100% true, but like within a UFO flap, you have like police stations and whatnot and radio stations being flooded with like a deluge of calls about sightings. So it's funny. I'm curious what lets this one sort of surface among that, because I'm assuming that's the situation.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, basically hubbub started around town, and people started to kind of look out for this, and so they were out on the beach multiple nights in a row. It led to them, they went out first and with basically just nothing, and over time, like over the second and third nights, they started to bring like binoculars with them and stuff like that. So they have like they are specifically equipped for this in a way that a lot of people aren't usually, which is also an interesting wrinkle to this whole thing. So on the actual sighting, the sighting night, it started about 9:45 at night. They saw an object up in the sky. It was this kind of crescent shaped object with red lights inside, and it was moving in complete silence towards the village of Conil de la Frontera, which is where they're from. It lasted around 30 minutes, and then after that, they noticed about 50 meters away from them that there were these beings, which is new. Like before this, it's just lights, but this is the first night where they start seeing creatures. So originally they see two beings that were about, like I said, about 50 meters away from them, coming out of the darkness, and the beings started to walk towards them. And as they got closer, they could tell, and use the binoculars and all that kind of stuff, they could tell that these beings were not actually human. They were very tall, exceeding 2 meters in height, and they dressed in these white long robes that went all the way down to the floor, or sand, whatever. And they were also.
Did they wear sandals? Since they're on the beach, or?
I don't think they ever we ever get any information about like what their footwear or their feet. The descriptions don't really have like they're just in these like long dresses, and then they have like kind of these are in the kind of, I guess, like tall whites kind of school of things, where they're kind of not featureless, but kind of very minimally featured faces that are kind of smooth and white and kind of gray-like, but not fully,
Yeah. I also just realizing that I accidentally am making this like a very foot-forward episode of the podcast.
I was trying to rein that back in, because I know that you wouldn't want to look back on this episode and have to listen to you talk about a bunch of feet when you come back to read.
Some people might.
So. Yeah, but I'm talking about you personally, because you're who I care about in this, Kyle.
Thank you. I appreciate that about you, Niall. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, these things are walking as they get described as walking in this kind of a halted, awkward manner. I didn't get like a full description of what this meant, but both their looks and the way they are moving leads these people to believe that they are not human. They don't really have like a lot of defined, like no hair really at all, and their facial features are very minimal. As these creatures started to walk towards them, they eventually turned their backs on the young people and started seemingly kind of ignoring them. and we're looking out at a light in the port of this beach. And at this point, the young people stopped and were just kind of observing this whole thing. And a small blue sphere started to come down from the sky within, a short distance of where these beings were standing. And right when this happened, those beings sat down in the sand and started to dig what ended up being, when they went to go look at it, a horseshoe-shaped mound. The beings then laid down in the sand, and they started to like bounce this like lighted blue sphere at each other, almost like they were playing catch.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some other details around this, like the differing accounts of this that I read. Okay, let me make this caveat that I haven't said yet, because I told you this before we started the podcast. A lot of the accounts of this that I found come from Spanish language sources. So I had to do a lot of translation. So there's some like, if the wording of things is a little awkward sometimes, that's why. It's because I'm trying to translate from sources that
you're not a native Spanish speaker, is what you're saying.
And a lot of the information you get from this, there's a Spanish a UFO researcher called J.J. Benitez, who is one of the main people that really has like, he's written a book on this and stuff, and like written a lot about this a lot. Now we will talk about him a little bit more later, and whether or not he's someone that you should be trusting for information. But a lot of the stuff that I am finding here, I've had to translate. So if anything is awkward, that's why. Okay. So yeah, these beings are kind of laying down on the beach playing with a blue ball, and this ball is about the size of a tennis ball supposedly, and that came down from the sky. I don't know exactly what that is supposed to be, but that's part of it. So this is a quote directly from J.J. Benitez, who interviewed the witnesses. The beings, with their arms stuck to their bodies and a clumsy gait, head towards the group. Panic spreads and the young people flee. The beings stop, and shortly after, the boys do the same. They are 20 or 30 meters away. The beings turn their backs on the 5 witnesses. They seem to be watching the red light that remains motionless over the port of Conil. At that moment, the locals see what they call a shooting star fall. It is a small light like a tennis ball and of a bluish-white color. It appears a few meters above the heads of the beings and disappears when it seemed it was going to crash into them. Immediately afterwards, without flinching, they sit down and do that mound, and then they let themselves fall on their backs, still stiff as sticks. So these people keep moving very strangely. They're very like stiff and rigid and awkward in their movements, which when there's a thing later that we'll talk about this whole thing again when a reveal later happens, because it's really there's stuff about this case that we're going to talk about. Anyway, so as they're playing with this ball, the witnesses are still watching them, and they start to see something in the distance. There's kind of almost like a bit of a fog coming in, and there's a dark figure in that fog, seemingly kind of floating. This being is taller than the other 2 that are lying down on the sand, still like kind of, cavorting. And this being's clothing was all black, and he had this very large white head with 2 large black holes instead of eyes. And so this seems to be a different creature, to some degree. And the witnesses were kind of spooked by this. They didn't really know what was going on. And now there's like a second weird being that's coming at them. So they were starting to debate like fucking hightailing it out of there. But then they saw this tall being coming in, and it just kind of had disappeared. And when they looked back, the 2 beings that had been there playing, so to speak, now didn't look like they used to, and had become human. They had become a man and a woman with Nordic features. The man was very tall and blonde. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and the woman was also tall but shorter than the man and had long dark hair, and she was wearing a long white skirt. So this being, so how it gets told in a lot of these accounts is these two beings sit down and start passing this blue ball back and forth, and they're laying down on the sand. And this other being comes out almost as if to distract the witnesses so that the two original beings can transform into human form and then slip away.
Is this
because?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Because like after this, there's like confusion with all this stuff happening at once, and those two humanoids now, the two human that were on the beach, slip basically into the town and disappear. Like they don't track them any further because they lose track of them because they're just random humans now. These two beings start to walk towards the streets of Conil, and as the young people try to like follow and see where they're going, they see this cloud coming, and that's when that other being comes in and literally seems to just run interference for them. You know, it's.
So here I have a question.
Yeah.
Does it seem from like the original account, wherever you're getting it from, is it like heavily implied that is what this thing is this third alien is doing? Or is it that like this is like the person investigating the story is like sort of inferring based off of how things play out? Do you know what I'm saying? Like
I believe the distraction angle is something that J.J. Benitez actually kind of surmised from everything.
Okay.
He is a researcher that came in after the fact, so he's not the first person that like the first reporter on the scene was a guy named Juan Bermudez, who was an acquaintance of these young people, and he I think was a reporter for like a local paper or something that first started this kind of case to go out, which then brought in people like J.J. Benitez. Who then did a lot more deep dive research on it and came to that conclusion.
Gotcha.
Of the kind of distraction angle.
Here's the other thing that I want to say.
Yeah,
I always get like with a good story of encountering an alien, I always get a little bit of a like I don't want to use a phrase as strong as chill run down my spine, but it does kind of give me the hairs standing up on the back of your necks feeling when a story is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And something about like moving in like a very inhuman way gets to me.
Yeah. That uncanny valley shit.
Yeah. Do you remember, I rewatched this recently. Do you remember the movie Pulse? Cairo, the Japanese horror film?
Yes. I don't remember. I've only seen it once many years ago, but I do remember it.
Okay. Spoilers if you haven't watched Pulse, but not big ones. There's a moment where one of the characters encounters a ghost in a like, I want to say it's like an abandoned apartment.
I think so, yeah.
And there's a moment where the ghost starts walking towards the character, and the ghost looks kind of like a human, just shrouded in darkness with their hair kind of sort of in their face, like you would kind of think of. But at one point, it does this thing completely for no reason, where the ghost sort of like starts to move in a way that is just like a human wouldn't do that for any reason. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't even mean like it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It almost does this sort of like weird, it's hard to explain, a shimmy, if you will, that doesn't look human. And it's like one of the scarier moments of the film. And that really, really gets to me. So if you have an alien story where aliens are doing some weird shit that a human just like wouldn't move this way, it's a little creepy to me.
Yeah,
I must say.
I agree. Like
but in a fun way.
Humanoid moving in an inhuman manner is one of those things that consistently hits for me as like a scary trope. Like the end of Wreck with that thing, you know, like there or the tall man in It Follows.
That
like it hits, you know?
That
it always
is,
hits.
I think I've said it on the podcast many years ago, but that is a moment that watching it, I think in theaters and any subsequent watch of the moment in It Follows where the tall man walks through the doorway actually genuinely sends a chill down my spine, makes me feel really scared. That one fucks with me.
Yeah, for sure.
It's freaky.
It's one of those moments that as soon as I brought up, that was the moment I was thinking of. Like, it is definitely that thing. Okay. So do you want just this? Do you ever just find something that you can only find one place and it's so buck wild that you just have to include it?
Yes, all the time.
I think I have to hunt down JJ Benitez's book, because if this is in that book, I want to read the full account of it. But I found this on a Reddit post. It was in response to a post asking about the Conil case. And this, they gave kind of a very brief synopsis of what I've told you so far. And then this comment was like buried in the comments below. I had to like expand fucking replies to get this comment, which is wild because it rules. This is only half of the story. The Spanish ufologist J.J. Benitez arrived at Conil the next day or the day after, and he met up with the witnesses. He snooped around town and found out the two human-looking shapeshifters had rented a hotel room by taking the identity of two Dutch engineers. Him and the witnesses saw these two beings on the beach again. They followed them, and the two humanoids started walking towards the water until they disappeared into the sea. And then J.J. Benitez supposedly took a picture of one of the footprints left by the male-looking being. I saw it in one of his books, which there are footprints, photos that you can find on Benitez's website and people who quote Benitez's website. But I thought those were from the initial encounter, not from a multiple day later thing hunting down the two humanoids that now were hiding as Dutch engine. Like the randomly reading, they rented a hotel room by taking the identity of two Dutch engineers in the middle of this story. I was what are you, what?
That's a crazy.
How do you find that out? Like,
you gotta have, there has to be a story behind that. But the thing is, you hear that and it's like, you could definitely imagine, I don't know this JJ Benitez person. So like, I don't want to mischaracterize them or anything, but I have encountered the type, we've both encountered the type of UFO researcher who will throw something wild like that in and give you no explanation about it. So it very well could be that, but if there's more context, that would be super interesting to read because that shit's got to play out like a fucking movie.
Yeah, it really is like a thriller thing. So if anyone has a copy of, I'm assuming that it's in this book. It's called The Fifth Column. By J.J. Benitez. Also, if anyone has a PDF or a copy of that they want to send to me, feel free.
Don't think I didn't pick up on the fact that you brought up feet again with the footprints.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry.
You keep trying to drag us back down into the fucking mud with this shit, and I'm sick of it.
Look, I'm trying to stamp all over this podcast with feet talk. So this case initially gets reported, like I said, seemingly through a person named Juan Bermudez. There was on October 5th, 1989, there was a report entitled 5 young people claim to have witnessed the transformation of 2 aliens into humans in the Diario de Cádiz newspaper. So that's the first actual reporting on this that actually went out. Which makes me curious how in the comment that I just was talking about, how Benitez got there within a day or two, because like the actual report doesn't come out until October 5th.
Oh,
so yeah, that's like a full week later. That's why I wanted to give a lot of caveats to that comment, because there are things about it that even as someone who just has read about this for like a couple days, don't quite feel like they track.
Yeah.
So, whatever. And then especially when you start reading about J.J. Benitez, you might start to have some other hesitations, I guess. So let's talk about J.J. Benitez, because I think he's an interesting person that honestly might end up getting his own episode at some point in the future. So he is a Spanish journalist and writer, basically studying ufology is his main main area of expertise. However, he did publish a novel saga called Caballo de Troya, where he recounts a journey back in time to the time of Jesus carried out in the 1970s by the United States military. So this is supposed like a trilogy of books that he wrote that I now am very curious what the fuck that is, because there's
it sounds like what is it? Was it Project Pegasus?
Or, yeah,
is that the one
like,
where
I think that's the right one.
Which one's the one where the guy claims to have gone back in time and met Jesus?
I mean,
is that Project Pegasus?
Is because they went on the, because there are two things that I've covered that have dealt with.
Well, there's the chronovisor, right?
There's the chronovisor, and then there's Project Pegasus. So I was thinking of the two of those. And military 1970s would be, our good big cheese Basiago himself.
That's
right, Barry Soetoro.
Basiago.
You know.
I was that's such a wild. That must feel wild. Somebody asks you, "What's that one about the guy who went back in time to meet Jesus?" And you're like, "You're gonna have to be more specific."
Yeah, there are two.
Well, there's three now. Apparently, well, I guess this is a fiction book, huh?
This is supposedly fiction, but
is he one of those guys who's like, it's fiction, but the truth is just underneath the surface?
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case with those books if you dug into his take on them.
Yeah.
They're viewed as fiction most places on the internet, but he has most of his like 50 books are quote nonfiction about UFOs.
Okay.
He has been proponents of such theories as that a magical power allowed the statues of Easter Island to be transported to their final location. The Dogon people had contact with extraterrestrials in the past. And a good old favorite, the Ark of Covenant is a weapon of mass destruction.
Okay. So we're full woo-woo territory here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, man and dinosaur coexisted, all that kind of stuff. One of the quotes that you'll find attributed to him is, "Science is very important, but the heart is even more so."
Okay.
Now, he has on several occasions been accused of plagiarism for having copied entire pages from the Urantia book.
Oh, fuck. Oh, my God. For context, the Urantia book is the 1,100-page version of the Bible where they expand on the Bible to have interplanetary, intergalactic Christs on multiple planets. And it's a book that is read and utilized as scripture by the cult that founded Sleepy Time Tea. There you go. I did an episode on that shit.
So go hunt that down.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
So yeah, it's he didn't, of course, denied accusations of that plagiarism. But it seems like he did just copy stuff whole cloth from there. He also has been accused of fraud.
Sure.
As in
why not?
A video where he presented he presented this video that ended up being of alien stuff that ended up being tied to an animation studio that he hired to make this video.
Okay.
And he crafted a whole backstory about his source being the CIA spy that was later proven to have never existed. So there's an episode of a series called Planeta Encantado that he was kind of the focus of, that he seemingly made up whole cloth.
Nice.
And like paid an animation studio to create his visual aids. So that I just wanted to quickly run down a little bit of JJ Benita's highlights, because I think when you look at that, it kind of, he is the main person that is putting out this theory that the GEIFO is covering up this whole thing, and there is an explanation, quote unquote. There's an official narrative on what happened here that I will get to here shortly. And he heavily disputes that and has a whole thing on his website, piece by piece. So it's based around, there was a ship that was out at sea that was kind of off course due to some wind conditions and stuff, that was supposedly held divers. And so divers losing track of where they were in unkind conditions, coming up onto the shore at this beach is what the kind of official narrative of this thing is. It was there.
That's the explanation for what happened here.
Yeah. So the change here was they're originally coming up in wetsuits effectively and like diver gear, and then they took those off and had human clothing underneath and walked into the city.
That makes a hilarious amount of sense, actually. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
However, there you can find a very his whole thing is based around, there were these official reports, and there was also based on those reports, there were these magazine articles that were kind of taking him to task specifically, like his theories and trying to, disprove his theories. So he went through and he found supposedly the actual captain of that vessel that was supposedly responsible for all of this.
To confirm that they didn't have divers?
That they weren't actually near this beach at the time. And so he has pictures of himself posing with this captain to prove that he met him. And then the captain claims that no one from the GEIFO actually ever contacted him to talk about this. So all the quotes attributed to him in the official report are faked.
Oh my God. Okay.
So that's like a quick, there's like other things that he'll point to that are fake as well. Like he tries to like 100 proofs against flat earth, this whole thing where he's like point by point going through people trying to discredit him and like rebutting everything he can with pictures and diagrams and supposed research and all this stuff. It's a very I'm not owned kind of article, but it's also
into a corn cob the whole time.
Yeah.
God, it's fraud and shit like this. It's just part and parcel of UFO stuff. And like, here's the thing. I try to be more open to a lot of UFO stuff that I hear, especially like I'm obviously a little less open to like stories of people encountering like crazy aliens who come up to them and take me to your leader type shit.
Yeah.
Some of that I do, anyways, point that I'm trying to get at. You could see how a couple of young guys hopped up on UFO experiencing juice, going to the beach at night, would freak out at like divers coming to shore, right? Like exactly as you described with the gear.
It's very similar to the sightings that you can look at as like heat suits, where it's like someone is wearing a thing they're not used to seeing. It's dark and it spooks them.
Yeah, it makes some sense. Also, this reminded me of it, and I don't know if have you ever seen? Speaking of fraud,
yeah. Okay, good start.
Have you ever seen? And folks, if you know who this is, if you haven't seen this, you should look this up. Have you ever seen the saga of Linda Moulton Howe trying to pass off a photo of an alien, which Linda Moulton Howe, the woman behind, I think it's called Strange Harvest, which is the like cattle mutilation documentary, the very famous one from the 70s. She's kind of been ingrained in UFO culture stuff for the last couple decades and all that, but she
I think has a podcast now.
Yeah,
she does online that's like 4 hours long every episode. And you can't find any sort of like synopsis at all. It's just like you have to listen to 4 hours of rambling.
I'm not fucking doing that, but I am interested in her as a character in the UFO scene. And there is a thing where she tried to pass off this photo of an alien. Somebody else we know is involved with this situation. She tries to pass off this photo that I think may have been fed to her by somebody. And she's like, this is a real photo of an extraterrestrial that we captured in this whatever scenario that we were in. And people like it very quickly are like, yeah, that's like the box cover art for XCOM, the video game. And she like was I hate to say it, but I think she was a little convinced that it was a photo of an alien, only insofar as she was like hasty to try and like concoct a story about how this was legitimate alien imagery or whatever. You know, it's like, anyways, just made me think of that. Just, you know, frauds, doing fraud shit. It's inescapable.
You're gonna find a lot of that out there because there's a lot of we lately have been railing against disinformation and talking about, like, you know, government's impact at trying, like, especially the American government, trying to keep people in the dark and just trying to spin extra stuff to make things a lot more complicated to figure out the truth and just try to hide.
Yeah.
So, like, I never want to fall down the side of, like, accepting the official story on one of these things, because it probably, even if the actual thing that happened was harmless and not aliens at all, they still probably are not telling you what actually happened because it's you know, a matter of, you know, national security or whatever. But I also don't 100% believe JJ Benitez either.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Do you have, like, more stuff about that?
So the actual investigation of this started on October 7th when the GEIFO came to Conil and interviewed the young people that witnessed this encounter. They also performed an investigation on the beach at Los Batales, and some various other pretty well-known ufologists in the area came to Conil, including a man named Jesus Borrego, who also interviewed these young people. And Jesus seemed to have fallen more on the side of the GEIFO, that this was a case of kind of mistaken normal things, and it wasn't actually, you know, anything extraterrestrial or supernatural or anything like that. The official account by the GEIFO is that these young people were heavily influenced by the news based on the Voronezh case, and they mistook normal situations, in this case the divers coming off of the ship, the CS Monarch, and, like, the lights that people were seeing were from the ship, and the beings that these people saw were divers that were unintentionally ended up on this beach, and so they've just mistook these people that way.
It's a very clean explanation. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it's too clean. I think these were aliens, Niall.
Yeah, I think this is some shape-shifting aliens, because if you ask the captain of this vessel, the CS Monarch, where they were actually like 53 kilometers from where the beach was. Like, they were, like, quite a ways away, and he got it down to, like, I think he requisitioned the records of this company that owned the CS Monarch and got, like, the actual GPS coordinates, or not GPS, because this was 1989, whatever the like positioning coordinates at these times that were in the logbook. Like, he got copies of the actual logbook of the CS Monarch, and it does show, as far as you can believe from him, that this ship was much further away than the people calculated, and it wasn't really that close to this beach. Now, how much I can trust those documents on his website, if he's, like, whole cloth just, like, taking pages of the Urantia book and putting them in his works, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the evidence that he supposedly has, is he requisitioned actual records from the company that owns the ship. He met with the and corresponded with the captain of that ship, who confirmed that logbook, and also that and all of that tied together showed that the ship was not actually nearly as close to this beach as was previously thought, and because of that, it was much less likely that those divers would have actually made it there in time. With the like timing of everything, it doesn't make sense.
They were there, you know? But they were, like, a little further away, and so, you know, QED.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Now, there's another thing that I didn't find a shit ton of information about, because I think that I would have to do some digging on a lot of Spanish language UFO websites to find information about this. But there's this specific beach at near Conil, Los Batales, supposedly is kind of at a point between two, like, Spain and like France maybe, and there's like military bases around here that the kind of insinuation that I was finding, that I could not find a lot of actual information to back this up, is that the official story is a disinformation covering up some military action, much like you would find in America. It's the military base at Algeciras is the one that is supposedly close by to here. And that's actually the radar at that base is one of the places that people have tried to look at to find corroboration of these lights. And even like local police officers had seen the lights, and they checked with the military base, and the radar didn't pick up anything. So like people think that this military base is involved somehow, but I didn't find a lot of specific information as to what the thing they were covering up was, you know?
Yeah. The thing is, I could see it, but it is weird to like have not a lot to go on other than some murmurs online. It's sort of like how I'm always trying to find more information on the idea that the Villas Boas case has like connective tissue to MK Ultra style experiments. You know what I mean? Like, which is a thing that I've read but don't have a lot of information about. Yeah. Interesting.
It's one of those. That's the shit that I would love to find a bunch of information on, like what the actual cover-ups were covering up.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest stuff to find. So there are a couple, like I mentioned earlier, there are a couple scattered sightings tied to this that kind of flesh out the timeline here. And we'll kind of probably end with those. So a couple days before the 29th, this is from a person named Pedro Gonzalez, who was one of the people that sighted these craft. A few days before September 29th, a couple of friends who had come from Madrid told me they were driving their car along the road next to Los Batales Beach. When they were about to get out of the vehicle, they saw a white van arrive, and 7 people in perfect clothes got out. One of them approached the Madrid couple's car to ask for their papers. Apparently, they were police officers, and they told them to get out of there. And this was tied to a lot of the kind of lights that people were seeing in the sky, and kind of seeding the idea that there were some sort of disinformation opposition happening at this time. Local police actually saw lights as well in the area at that time period, and there's a police report that stated it was observed that in the vicinity of the Telefonica, there were 2 large spotlights flying overhead. As we headed towards the location along the Pago del Sora road, we stopped at the height of the campsite called Los Eucaliptos to observe the spotlights. It was observed that the spotlights were off and no noise of any kind of aircraft in flight could be heard. The spotlights immediately went out. The strange light reacted to the presence of the officers, turning into a small dim spotlight that was almost imperceptible. Then heading in the direction where they had previously been shining, from the vicinity of Telefonica to about 500 meters past the military base. This could be observed for approximately 60 to 90 seconds. And then there's even another thing with the witnesses of the initial encounter in mid-October of the same year, where they saw another thing on the same beach with the guy, Jesus Borrego, the UFO investigator, that they gave testimony to this fact on a radio program. They saw a couple going down to Los Batales Beach, the same beach that they had seen previously, and they recognized the humanoids that they had seen 2 weeks earlier, and they followed them and saw how they disappeared into the sea. So this is the thing that I found weird, because other than the Dutch engineer angle, that's basically the story that JJ Benitez, that guy was saying was in JJ Benitez's book.
Yeah.
Like, that they came later, saw them on the beach, and then the beings disappeared into the sea. And this is a thing that, like, I don't know which one is the original, you know? I don't know what the original account of that is, but it comes up 2 different ways. You know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I would sort of assume. I mean, you were saying that Benitez claims that he was there like the next day, right? Like investigating things.
Yeah,
but
and
there's
then the actual
inconsistency in
thing
that.
later was a couple days after that. Like he was there
Right.
for a little stretch of time.
Right.
So
Right. But usually with these things, uh, uh, it's like if it's like reported in like a newspaper, I kind of take that as the first reporting. I guess it just depends. It really depends. That is weird to have the inconsistencies in the timeline, though, and it would also drive me nuts trying to figure out what came first.
because it's the fact that it's the same story by two different UFO researchers,
Right.
one with more detail than the other, and the timeline is like it's like bafflingly close.
Yeah, and it also
But
doesn't
also
help
strange.
that like one of the people who has more detail has a tendency to like
Steal other
people's information, and also I don't know, it just extra details that are very strange that you, like you said, there you didn't find anything. I mean, maybe there's like an entire fucking like a big nice juicy set of context that you just don't have because it's not on the English web. So that's also the other problem.
There's also there seem to be some people that are pushing the idea that Conil is like one of those whatever we called them, where there's like a portal there that high strangeness happens.
Sure,
there
it's
frequently.
okay.
Because like there's some other stuff that happened since that people have looked at like there are reports that people saw other beings like later, like not in the same exact time period, like years later, in the same areas, and they're not heavily reported on. They're just like these random websites that kind of try to tie it all together into this thing that like Conil is like a nexus point for the strange, and it's just one of those things that I don't really know what to do.
Let me offer up a counterpoint to there being nexus points of the strange. Anywhere can be a nexus of high strangeness if you work hard enough at it.
Yeah,
that's my take. That as a little bit of advice, listeners. And what's his name? Benitez.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. Write that down.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the basic rundown of the Conil case, or a pretty fun UFO case from the late 1980s in Spain.
Yeah,
and the first time I've seen another government that's not the United States government supposedly
get accused
of disinformation,
of disinfo cover-ups. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think I've seen some of that in like, Russia.
Yeah,
before,
that makes
but
sense.
No, Spain. That's a new one. It's one of those things where like I do wonder how much of that type of stuff is locked behind a language barrier for us. But it's a good story. It's also another one of the stories that's very funny that it's like, if you think about it, it's maybe a 10-minute discussion in reality if it weren't for the fact that this one UFO researcher adds a whole bunch of layers to it for a lot of different reasons.
It's one of those things that very well probably could have faded into obscurity.
Yeah, but this guy...
But one guy has decided, and I think there's a couple other people out there that do talk about this case. It's not just Benitez, but he's a linchpin. He's really kind of he's really waved this flag in a way that has made this case persist.
You know what? God bless for the UFO researchers who are like, I am about this one story big time. I kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean, when something grabs your imagination, I get it.
True.
And that's the kind of sincere take on what happened here.
And if it happens to also grab your bank account, then so be it. That's kind of a nice bonus, a plus.
Yeah. If that book that you lifted from someone else's,
exactly.
Oh man. So at what point do we say things that would get us in trouble?
I think Benitez, if Benitez listens to this, he knows it's all in good fun, and we're joking.
Yeah,
probably.
We'll see him. We'll see him for pool this weekend.
Yeah.
So I guess That'll take us to a big question.
Sure.
Now, there was a big question that we talked about earlier that you haven't. I don't know yet. Is that something that would fit here?
It's not really.
Okay.
But it's up to you. I mean, I'm happy to do it. But if you have a big question that you're ready and willing to serve up piping hot, then I can do that too.
You know what? Fuck it. Let's just do Jacob's.
You want to do Jacob's? Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you, Jacob. It's not entirely related, but it is in the sort of like cover up. It's more about. All right, you know what? I'm just gonna fucking read it. I don't need to preamble.
There you go.
Since talk of presidents doing drugs in the White House was thrown into the ring last episode, which this is Mary Meyer and JFK doing weed, doing weed in the White House supposedly. You've become president, and your first order of business is to feel good in the Oval Office. What drug of choice, real or fictional, would you want to try to ease your diplomatic nerves? Forgive me if this question's already been asked. I can't remember. I don't think so. Jacob says...
That's such like I respect that totally. Not laughing at you, Jacob. It's just funny to think
idea that
someone in our podcast is like
this has
listening to our show is like, has this been asked before? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
that question. All right.
They end by saying, "I'll go first. I've been watching a lot of Instagram reels of Skyrim, so I'd try out some skooma." Hey, I'm sure that saying that you're watching a lot of Instagram reels of Skyrim is revealing about you as a person, but I don't know enough about Skyrim to really like make that call.
Yeah, so. Somehow you have submitted this question to the two people who are largely in the nerd sphere that have not really played Skyrim.
But hey, good on you. No, that's sorry.
Yeah.
Just joking around. I have an answer for this. I don't know about you.
I'm still figuring it out because I think okay, go ahead.
So I'm a huge Philip K. Dick fan. One might even call me a dickhead. And one of my favorites was The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. And in that book, it's basically, there's so many things in that book that are so fucking bleak. Because like one of the core conceits of the book is that life on Earth has become mostly inhospitable due to the sun, like basically global warming. And so people can't like really live on the surface so much. And if they do go on the surface, they wear these like suits that like, I think like circulate cool water to keep them from overheating. And then they mostly live underground. And then a significant amount of the human population has been sent off planet. But if you are an off planet person, you're fucking destitute. It's a bad time to live off planet. You don't have a lot. Shit's terrible off planet. And so people get into this drug called CAN-D, CAN-D. That's like basically lets you live your preferred optimal experience. Okay, let me put it this way. One of the guys at the start of the book takes the drug, and there's also this whole thing where they basically furnish your space with these these various things to like enhance the drug taking experience, because you basically are mentally transported to a world where you're living your dream life. Like the guy takes the drug while he's like on this horrible planet that sucks. And it may have been Mars. I can't remember. But he basically is like in his drug trip. He's living in a mansion and he's like going to the beach with this like beautiful woman that he loves and stuff. And it's all like fantastic. And there's like a business that will sell the props that you can like position in your house for when you're doing your candy trips.
Interesting. Okay.
It's really good. I really love that book, and I'm just sort of thinking about the native props of being in the White House, the fucking Oval Office, and all the shit that's in there. That would be like great props for when I'm doing this drug trip, you know.
You would see some real weird shit with all the like bald eagles around
Yeah,
the
baldy.
Oval
Yeah,
Office and everything.
exactly. And I'm like, fucking, the ghost of Abraham Lincoln's kind of coming out of the mirror to give me advice on like all kinds of shit. I'm talking to Abe Lincoln, and he's, doffing his cap, and you see there's a big bullet hole in his head and stuff, and he's just spitting wisdom. And that's the kind of shit I want to experience, I guess.
There you go. Yeah. So so you talking about that jogged something in my memory that isn't actually directly my answer to this question,
Okay.
but I think is funny, so I'm going to bring it up.
Sure.
There's a Judge Dredd story that I really like, where the crux of the story is this company makes this candy that's like so good and so addictive that it's like actually like ruining people's lives, and like getting people so addicted and everything. And the culmination, I started thinking about that with like getting fucking Ronald Reagan and his Jelly Bellies, like swap out the Jelly Bellies with this thing. And then if I remember correctly, the end of that story is Judge Dredd firing the people who make this candy, the person that invented it, up into, and like sending him on a ship up into space to never come back to Earth. Like he literally is like, you're the thing you create is so dangerous for humanity.
Oh my
and
God,
so
they
against
Planet
everything
Hulk
that they like
him.
fire him into space.
That's so funny. Wow.
But
I
anyway,
gotta read some Judge Dredd.
Funnily enough, both of the things that I thought of are from various things of Judge Dredd, because I want to take from the Alex Garland Dredd movie. There's a drug called slow-mo.
Oh my God, right. Yeah.
Is just a cinematic device. It's like
You get to enter Snyder time.
yeah, you take it and everything slows down and gets sparkly and like really interesting visually, and like allows them just to like go wild with visual effects. But it's also like a euphoric thing. So I want to take slow-mo and go bowling in the White House bowling alley. Okay. I think that would be
I like that.
just
I forgot there is a bowling alley there, isn't there?
Yeah, they got a bowling alley in a movie theater. So I think like I would take slow-mo and go and just like vibe in the fucking White House bowling alley.
Okay, I can get down with that. Do you think that if you took slow-mo and watched Zack Snyder's Justice League, you'd have like a mental breakdown because it felt like you experienced like a lifetime? Like a full human lifetime?
I honestly would be curious if taking slow-mo makes that movie go by quicker. I'm someone who has unfortunately seen Batman v Superman twice.
Oh my God. Why did you do that?
One was like weirdly enough, was a really early like date night thing with Jules when we first started talking.
Okay.
And I had already watched it because I'm just like, I was curious. And then I was like, this movie's really bad. And for some reason we decided to watch it again.
That's wow. That is interesting.
But that's what you do when you like film. You fucking just watch things that are like
if you really
weird failures.
If you really love film, you're going to be out there watching Batman v Superman.
Yeah. Or if you just want to see the side of Ben Affleck's butt, you can watch Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
And his photoshopped out mustache, right?
That's Henry Cavill in Justice League.
Fuck, I don't fucking remember. I haven't seen any of these. I've just heard the stories, and it sounds pretty bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
I would take Candy to escape watching.
Yeah, there you go.
Batman v Superman. You put me in front of that, and I'm like, I'm out of here, taking some of this dick drug.
I think maybe if you took Candy, Zack Snyder's creative vision would make sense.
Maybe. Maybe. You would be kind of, I guess the idea would be you'd be experiencing like a drugged out optimal version of the thing that's in front of you. So it would finally be a good movie. God,
this isn't relevant really.
That's okay. That's
anything.
We're so good at bringing up stuff that's just not fucking relevant. So I'd say go for it.
A plot point of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Lex Luthor makes a congresswoman, I think, drink piss. And it's not really remarked upon, but it's there if you go back and watch it. It's really it's interesting.
That sounds interesting.
It's not good.
You know, I'm
it's actually pretty bad. But I guess I do remember things from it, which is more than I can say about some movies. So
it's an odd choice. But if you think about it, Lex Luthor was really helping her to get into a healthy lifestyle of drinking your own urine, which as we all know, I did that episode many years ago now, and we can safely conclude drinking your own piss, very healthy.
The episode that the reaction to it spawned its own channel on our Patreon Discord.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to use that as a way to get into business.
True,
because
yes.
that's
good
how
closer.
this works. So if you want to follow the podcast, you can follow us on social media, on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers. If you look up It Gets Weird wherever you find your podcasts, we'll probably be there.
Twitch.tv/ItGetsWeird. I've been playing Elden Ring with Colin. We are almost done with Shadow of the Erd Tree. So come check it out. Give us a follow. It's been a lot of fun. Email us if you want your email read on the show. itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. If you send us something good, we might read it on the show. Just let us know how we should address you. We always appreciate getting emails from listeners, so please feel free to reach out to us. It's always a good time. And as you said, patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $1 tier, a $2 tier, and a $5 tier. The $1 tier is just a tip for us. It's you saying, thank you for doing what you do, here's $1. But if you want the bonus content, the $2 tier is where you can start. $2 tier, we've got It Gets Weird TV, where right now we are talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion, which has been a lot of fun. We just talk about weird television there, and people get to vote on the shows that we watch, what seasons of shows we watch. We've watched The X-Files in the past, and all kinds of other good stuff that's in the same vein as the material we like to cover on the show. So please check out the $2 tier. But if you want the most bang for your buck, you want to check out the $5 tier. You're going to get It Gets Weird TV plus in also a new show. God, I'm really tripping over my own words here. We've got a new show. It's called World of Weird. And that is all about Niall and I saying whatever the fuck we want. We talk for an hour about whatever the hell we want to talk about. So if that sounds fun, the $5 tier is for you. But wait, there's more. At the $2 tier or $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday on your own private Patreon feed. And if you're a little piss pig and you're into that sort of
we
thing.
We can't take Freedom's thing. You can't do that.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that's a Freedom thing. Sorry. If you're a little piss,
I think I said freak. Piss boy earlier. We can use that.
If you're a piss boy, or girl, or piss they, come check out the Discord that you get access to by donating to our Patreon at the $2 tier or the $5 tier. You can chat with Niall and I directly in there. We're talking about UFOs and shit in there with our listeners. So it's a great time. We have a great community who are all very funny, very interesting, and well read on these subjects. So please check it out. If you can't donate, though, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.